You are sitting at your desk. The blue light is stabbing your eyes. Your temples are starting to pulse. It feels like a tiny construction crew is inside your head. They are using jackhammers on your optic nerve. You reach for a small plastic bottle. You swallow 2 orange pills with lukewarm coffee. In 20 minutes, the construction crew goes on break. It is a modern miracle we take for granted. But now, imagine the year is 3000 BC. You are deep in a dense, humid forest. There is no pharmacy within 1,000 miles. There is no coffee to wash down a pill. There is only the pounding in your skull and the sound of a predator nearby. If your brain just short-circuited thinking about that, welcome to Stickwise. Hit the subscribe button because we specialize in making your modern stress feel ancient. How did our ancestors survive the agony of a migraine? The answer reveals why you still feel the need to hide in a dark room today. Before 1961, there was no such thing as ibuprofen. For thousands of years, humans had to be their own chemists. They didn't have laboratories, but they had the forest. Imagine walking through the woods with a throbbing skull. You see a willow tree near a river. You don't see a tree, you see a medicine cabinet. Ancient Sumerians and Egyptians were stripping bark back in 4000 BC. They weren't doing it for fun. They were looking for salicin. Your body takes salicin and turns it into salicylic acid. That is the grandfather of modern aspirin. Hippocrates actually told people to chew on it for fever. Imagine chewing on a bitter stick while your head explodes. It sounds primitive and desperate, but it worked because they were brilliant observers of nature. This is why you still feel a strange comfort near nature today. Your ancestors learned that the woods held the cure for their pain. But what if the herbs didn't work? What if the pain was so bad you thought your head might burst? Our ancestors had a literal solution for that. They called it trepanation. We call it drilling a hole in your skull. Archaeologists have found skulls from 7000 BC with perfect circular holes. The bone had actually started to heal. That means the patient survived the procedure. They weren't trying to be cruel. They believed the pain was caused by trapped pressure. Sometimes they thought it was foul vapors or spirits. They were trying to let the pressure out. Think about the last time you had a massive tension headache. You probably rubbed your temples as hard as possible. You were trying to create a physical distraction from the internal pain. Our ancestors just took that instinct to a terrifying extreme. It was the ultimate pattern interrupt for a brain in agony. If you think a hole in the head is bad, look at Egypt. Imagine you are a high-ranking official in the pharaoh's court. You have a deadline, and the sun is blinding. A migraine hits you like a chariot. The doctor arrives with a small clay crocodile. Inside the crocodile, he puts some grain. Then he ties the clay reptile to your head with linen. You are now walking around with a ceramic lizard on your forehead. It sounds like a prank from a history book. But there was a hidden logic to the madness. The linen wrap acted as a compression bandage. Pressure on the scalp can actually dull the sensation of throbbing vessels. It is the ancient version of wearing a tight hat to feel better. We still use compression today for sports injuries. Our ancestors just liked their medical gear to look like swamp predators. But the battle against the headache didn't stop with lizards. For centuries, doctors followed something called humoral theory. They believed your body was a chemistry set of 4 liquids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. If your head hurt, they assumed you had too much blood, or perhaps your stomach was full of bitter yellow bile. The solution was simple and disgusting. They would reach for the leeches, or they would use a scalpel to take some blood out. They wanted to reduce the heat and pressure in your system. If that didn't work, they made you vomit. They thought clearing the stomach would clear the mind. This is why we still feel nauseous during a bad migraine. Our bodies are trying to purge a system that feels broken. Ancient doctors just decided to help that process along. It was a brutal way to live. Every headache was a gamble with a blade or a leech. But then came the botanical specialists of the Middle Ages. They discovered a plant called feverfew. They called it the medieval aspirin. It contains a compound called parthenolide. This stuff stops blood vessels in the brain from constricting. It was basically a targeted strike against the cause of migraines. Our ancestors were performing complex pharmacology without a microscope. They also realized that peppermint oil felt cold on the skin. Menthol creates a cooling sensation that confuses the nerves. It is like a smokescreen for your pain receptors. When you use a cooling patch today, you are being ancient. You are using a trick discovered by Greeks and Romans. They also loved their caffeine. Long before Starbucks, they used tea to treat the head. Caffeine constricts dilated blood vessels. It is why caffeine is still in many modern headache powders. Our ancestors were basically the first biohackers. They were testing every leaf and berry to stay functional. Survival required them to be sharp and alert. You couldn't hunt a deer if your vision was blurring. You couldn't protect the tribe if you were vomiting in a cave. Pain wasn't just an inconvenience back then. Pain was a threat to the entire group. This is why we feel so much guilt when we're sick today. You feel like you are letting your team down at work. That is just your ancient brain worrying about the tribe's survival. By the 1800s, things started to get really wild. Science was getting better, but regulations were non-existent. Doctors started using opium and morphine for everything. If you had a headache, they gave you a heavy narcotic. It worked, but it created a massive problem. People became addicted to the cure. They also suffered from something called rebound headaches. When the drug wore off, the pain came back twice as hard. It was a vicious cycle of chemical dependence. Then came 1899, and a man named Felix Hoffmann. He worked for a company called Bayer. He managed to stabilize the acid found in willow bark. He created a little white pill called aspirin. It was the first global blockbuster drug. Suddenly, you didn't have to chew on a bitter stick. You didn't have to tie a crocodile to your head. You just took a pill and waited. But aspirin was tough on the stomach. It caused ulcers and irritation for many people. We needed something better. We needed a hero for the common headache. That hero was a man named Dr. Stuart Adams. In 1961, he was working on a new compound. He was looking for something stronger than aspirin, but safer. One morning, he woke up with a massive hangover. He had a huge speech to give that day. His head was pounding like a war drum. He decided to be his own test subject. He took a 600 milligram dose of his new experimental drug. By the time he stepped on stage, the pain was gone. That drug was ibuprofen. He literally cured his own hangover to save his career. It is the most relatable origin story in medical history. But think about the journey to get there. From drilling holes in skulls to ceramic crocodiles. From chewing bitter bark to synthetic laboratory miracles. Every step was driven by the same human need. We just wanted the noise in our heads to stop. We wanted to be able to look at the sun again. Our ancestors endured unimaginable agony so we could have safety. They mapped the chemistry of the world with their own bodies. They were the ones who figured out which plants saved lives, and which plants were just pretty decorations. So the next time you open that orange bottle, think of them. Think of the ancient human sitting by a fire 50,000 years ago. They were holding their head in their hands just like you. They were staring at the flames and wishing for a miracle. You are living in the miracle they spent millennia searching for. You aren't weak for needing a pill for your stress. You are just a modern person with an ancient sensitivity. Your brain is still calibrated for a world of predators and shadows. It is still looking for the quiet of the deep woods. When the modern world gets too loud, your head reacts. It is a signal that you are pushing yourself too hard. Our ancestors had to listen to that signal to survive. They knew when to rest and when to seek a cure. They respected the pain because the pain was a teacher. It taught them about the power of the willow tree. It taught them about the importance of community care. Because you couldn't drill your own skull. You needed someone you trusted to hold the tools. Pain has always been a communal experience for humans. It is the thing that forces us to ask for help. It is the thing that connects us to the Earth's natural pharmacy. We are a species defined by our refusal to just suffer. We are the animals that looked at a headache and fought back. We didn't just accept the throbbing as our fate. We invented medicine because we valued our peace of mind. That is a beautiful legacy to carry in your pocket. Your ancestors were the original scientists of the nervous system. They didn't have white coats, but they had incredible courage. They faced the dark and the pain with nothing but curiosity. And they passed that curiosity down to us. It lives in every doctor and every chemist working today. It lives in you when you choose to take care of yourself. You are the result of thousands of years of successful healing. Your headache isn't a failure of your biology. It is a reminder of how much you have survived. You are not malfunctioning. You are just remembering what it feels like to be alive. Take the pill, but remember the willow tree. If you enjoyed this trip through the ancient pharmacy, subscribe to Stickwise for more. Your ancestors would have loved having this much information in their pockets. See you in the next one.